Starting a new job can be both an exciting and daunting experience. It's important you become familiar with the protocols, procedures and dress codes at your new place of work. Hi, my name's Eleonora, and together we'll look at the ways in which you can make a good first impression. We'll cover topics such as preparing for your first day, understanding the work environment, working with others, and dealing with conflict. We'll also hear from James Massini, founder of Hippo Jobs, who'll give us all some fantastic advice. Starting a new job can create a lot of mixed emotions. Sure, it's great to look forward to a new challenge, but let's face it, it can be pretty stressful. You never know what to expect or what's going to be expected of you. So what can you do to overcome this initial fear and make a good first impression? Well, here are some suggestions. Firstly, do some more research on the organisation you'll be working for. Hopefully this will add to the information gained during your interview and recruitment process. It's always impressive if you're seen to know more up front, and the easier it will be to start contributing and be part of the team. Dress standards can vary greatly depending on the workplace and the job. However, no matter how formal or casual the standards are, aim to be at the better dressed end of the scale. Take a slightly more conservative approach initially until you get a feel for what's acceptable in the workplace. Make sure your clothes aren't ripped and in need of repair. Plan your wardrobe a week in advance. Of course, we don't have to remind you of the other important factor, personal hygiene. This you can't do a week in advance. It's really useful to plan and test the route you'll be taking because it will give you an idea of any possible traffic delays. This is particularly important if you're not used to travelling at peak times. Always aim to arrive 10 to 15 minutes early. It's never a good look arriving late for work, particularly in the first few days or weeks. When you do arrive for your first day, a critical part of creating a good impression is a positive attitude. It's only natural to feel a little anxious, but if you're polite and friendly, most people will respond well to you. Make eye contact with everyone you meet and don't be afraid to smile when it's appropriate. Finally, ask questions. There's always a steep learning curve involved in any new environment. No one expects you to know or to learn everything on day one. You'll need time to absorb all the new information, and most employers make those allowances for new employees.
Being young, you don't really necessarily have the experience or anything like that of the workplace at the moment and the environments that you're stepping into. So when you walk into an organisation, you're not too sure what you need to be doing and how you need to be doing it at the moment. I think that the key to overcoming that is really about asking questions. The people who sit back in my organisation don't last very long. The people who get out there and are asking me 4,000 questions on their first day, or asking any of the staff as many questions as they want on their first day, are the ones that just keep going and we'll stick around with it.
So, just relax, show a genuine interest in the organisation and your role, and don't be afraid to ask for help. At this stage, it's important to ask questions and remain positive. In starting any new job, first impressions count. Research the company you're joining, plan your routes to work, aim to arrive early, and be well presented. At this stage, your supervisors will be assessing your manner more than your output. Have a positive attitude and show interest. And above all, don't be afraid to ask questions or for help. The next stage in preparing for your new job is learning more about your role, your workplace, and the organisation you'll be working for.
My expectations of new staff are really around them actually wanting to be there. I think that's the key to it. If they're wanting to be there and wanting to learn who the organisation is, what it's about and how it functions, any of that sort of stuff, that's the real key to it in that initial stage.
The first week of any new employment usually involves a training, orientation or induction process. In larger companies, the induction process can be a structured program that takes a few hours or occurs over a number of sessions. In other workplaces, the process is less formal and takes place with on-the-job training. It depends mainly on the size of the company, the complexity of their operations, and the nature of the role itself. During this time, there's generally a lot of information to digest, so make sure you keep a pen and pad handy at all times. Induction usually begins with the basics: your workplace hours, times of breaks, and how to complete timesheets, locations of kitchens, toilets, and fire exits. You'll also be introduced to your supervisor and others in your workplace. When you begin your training, find out from your supervisor what they expect of you while you're training and once you've finished training, all of your duties and responsibilities, if there are any measurable results or standards that apply, such as key performance indicators or KPIs, and finally, what the limits of your authority are. This information will provide you with a clear understanding of what's expected and show your employer that you want to perform your role properly. Listen and observe carefully and pay attention to who does what and which procedures and processes to follow. Your supervisor and co-workers will expect you to ask questions if you're not sure of anything. And it's always better to ask than to make a mistake, even if the question seems simple. Another important component of your induction involves understanding all of your employer's conditions and rules of employment. These include occupational health and safety rules, employment conditions such as awards, probation periods, and sick leave entitlements. As a new employee, you'll be less familiar with the workplace, and this may put you at greater risk of a workplace injury. Your employer should work with you to ensure you follow safe practices. The employer should provide you with a copy of the workplace's OH&S policy, show you the emergency procedures and exits, and train you to do your job safely. Rules may also apply for the personal use of mobile phones, email and internet in the workplace. Find out what these are and keep your use to an absolute minimum. Induction and orientation programs provide all new employees with on-the-job training, information on the employer, their operations, and the rules and conditions that apply in the workplace. There's usually a lot of new information to take in, so be prepared to take notes and ask plenty of questions. It's important to fully understand what your role will be and what's expected of you in performing it.
The best way to get to know colleagues, I think, is to get in there and just talk. You talk to them, paying actual attention to them, not just asking somebody a question and walking away from it. I think it's in general life what you need to make sure that you're doing. If you ask somebody something, to actually sit there and listen to their answer to it as well is extremely important.
Active listening is a great skill to have. This is when you clarify something to make sure you've heard it properly. Other useful skills in the workplace include getting to know people by introducing yourself during the first week, being polite and professional at all times, and using break times to get to know your workmates better. Be conscious of creating the right balance between your work relationships. Too much socialising can anger your boss, but becoming unsociable can also become an issue. Oh, and just a word on office gossip. If you want to make a good impression, don't gossip. It may be handy sometimes to keep an ear open to the grapevine, but never contribute to it.
We run, Friday night drinks and all this sort of stuff in at the office here. But one of the things that I really take an active interest in or notice of is not going over the top with that as well. I think that just because you've got Friday night drinks and you're going out with people at work, you've got to make sure that it's still a professional environment, that you're still understanding what it is that the business is trying to deliver and that you're there to work.
Your relationship with your supervisor is obviously one of the most important you'll have in the workplace. A lot will depend on their personality and on their style of leadership. But if you follow these tips, you're sure to go a long way towards creating a good working union. Try to understand your supervisor's style and approach, their role and its pressures. Show that you want to perform your role well and keep them informed of progress and problems. Don't criticise them and always offer to help out once you have completed your own tasks. Every company has its own way of doing things. These practices are also known as protocols, and examples may include the practice involved in ordering materials or equipment.
Madeline, we're running low on stock. I need you to order some more suckling pig, some Japanese mint, also some rhubarb and some radishes.
Okay, let me just write that down.
No, gotta go. You'll be right. See ya.
Watch and listen carefully to your co-workers to learn who does what and what procedures you should follow. Pay attention to those people who really get things done and learn from them. Workplace culture is another way that you can learn about the organisation you've joined. Of course, work cultures can vary greatly, so if you pay attention to things such as whether the dress code is casual or conservative, you'll learn a lot.
Work culture is generally about the identity of the organisation, who it is and what it's about, how it makes you feel as a person. So, for example, the culture in at Hippo is really about the energy of young youth, that energy that we're able to give off. So, for example, the culture internally for us is really about you coming in and being yourself, being the person that you are and true to the person that you are. And that's really the key.
There's no doubt that building good relationships in the workplace does make work more enjoyable and satisfying. Do your best to get to know your co-workers quickly. Be polite and respect their skills and knowledge. You'll also find it easy to fit in if you learn and follow the protocols and the culture of the workplace. No workplace is perfect, but when things go wrong, the head in the sand approach is never the answer. Real problems rarely just go away. They bubble beneath the surface until they boil over. However, the only problems you should be concerning yourself with are those that directly affect you and the way you perform your job. For example, producers are notoriously tight, directors demanding, and cameramen slow. However, I never let this affect my performance. Oh, I wasn't talking about this crew. Honestly. It's important to realise that good communication is a two-way process. However, if problems do arise, you're going to need some courage and good communication skills to sort them out. Some useful tips to keep in mind include: write down your thoughts before you approach your supervisor or co-worker. Don't send irate email messages. Be prepared to listen as well as speak. Be prepared to accept feedback about the issue and how it should be handled, and think of constructive solutions to the problem. The main problems you're going to be facing are those concerning your job, other workers, and your supervisor. If you're in a completely new role or one with greater responsibilities, you may have some problems dealing with the new expectations of your supervisor. Remember, it's essential that you know exactly what's required of you in terms of your tasks and priorities and what measures or standards are required. If you are failing to meet those requirements, then one useful suggestion is to ask your supervisor or a co-worker to shadow you on the job. In this way, you may be shown better ways of working or have expectations adjusted if they're unrealistic. A conflict of ideas about how processes or jobs are handled can be highly productive if both parties are willing to create better solutions together. As a new employee, however, you'll want to make sure you fully understand why the current practices are in place and how they work before suggesting any changes or improvements. However, personality clashes are rarely productive. No matter what the reason for the clash, this conflict is bad for business because it lowers morale and productivity and raises stress levels. If you find yourself in a situation like this, here are some tips. Accept that people are different. Try to maintain a polite or neutral approach. Resist gossiping or complaining about the person to others. And use your energy to be more productive on the job instead of thinking negative thoughts about someone else. In most cases, personality clashes shouldn't intrude with you at work. It's just that some people allow themselves to be consumed by these.
I can't believe you screwed up the Ford. I wasn't even working on the Ford. You had me degreasing the Mitsubishi van all morning.
Oh, I'm wrong, am I? Here's a newsflash for you, kid. If I say you've screwed up, you've screwed up. Got it?
Conflict with supervisors can generate high levels of stress. Like problems with co-workers, they're created by personality clashes, differences in ideas, or due to aggressive or abusive behaviour towards the employee. Some issues can't be handled face-to-face. In these situations, the issue might have to be referred to the Human Resources Manager. A word on personal problems. Most should stay at home. Hassles with boyfriends, girlfriends, or others should not impose on you in the workplace. However, if you do have a very serious personal problem, you should let your manager or human resources person know. This way they can adjust your workload, especially if you need time off. So our tips for dealing with problems are pretty simple. Divide your problems into those that clearly affect your job and those that don't. Don't waste your energy on troublemakers. Use open communication as a way to deal with the others. Speak to your supervisor or human resources manager about any problems potentially affecting your job. The time it takes to adjust to a new job or workplace can vary from person to person and job to job. It's natural to feel nervous, but try not to feel scared. Everyone who works has been in your place before. Some people fit in quicker than others, depending on the workplace. But no matter how long it takes, if you follow the rules of good workplace etiquette, you'll make a good first impression that will last. Always remember to show that you're interested in your new job and workplace. Be polite, punctual and well presented. Aim to become productive quickly. Make an effort to get to know your co-workers and respect their knowledge and skills. And don't be afraid to communicate if you think there's a problem that's seriously affecting your performance. Above all, don't be afraid to ask questions at any time. Well, that's it. How was that for a good day's work? Must be about time to go home. Have a great week. And remember, first impressions last.